It's the weekend almost. I am on for the last time this week, and we are talking about mistake number 5, which is to stop taking your diet or your exercise to extremes. And this is part, if you're new to the group, this is part of a little video series that I created called the top 5 mistakes that women over 40 make when they want to lose weight. So let's dive in. Let me just grab my notes. It just keeps me on track. So why is this a mistake that I believe women over 40 make? So I think what it boils down to is that weight loss is just harder when we are over the age of 40 for a number of reasons. But I think that a lot of women that have tried to lose weight in their 20s and 30s, they suddenly realize that their old tricks don't work anymore, right? So they realize that weight loss is a little bit harder, and therefore they have a tendency to diet harder, right? So we have a tendency to cut our calories more. We restrict more, right? I'm gonna cut out sugar. I'm gonna cut out wine. I'm gonna cut out bread. I'm gonna cut out like everything, right? Really. We have a tendency to work out harder. We have a tendency to fast harder, to fast longer. But unfortunately, going harder might not be the answer. In fact, I would say that extremes often end in extreme disappointment. See, remember that one, okay? All right, so what we're going to talk about today is I want to dive more into the topic of fasting. And I talked about fasting last Friday, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more today because I think that this is a strategy that I often see women take to the extreme in different groups that I'm in. And I think it's what can happen is that women, they take intermittent fasting, but then they also add in like extreme caloric, like extremely cutting calories and doing hard workouts. And so it becomes like this classic combination of eat less, move more, taken to the extreme. So that's why I decided to use that as a topic today. And if you guys have been following this series, I've talked about the fact that when you consume less energy than you expend, you put yourself in a negative energy balance. And this is necessary to lose weight. We need to eat less calories than we're expending for the most part, right? But what happens is that if it's too extreme, then it can actually make things worse. Okay, so fasting being one of those ways that women have a tendency to maybe cut their calories more, it can, not always, but it can worsen certain hormonal imbalances that may already be there, but it can also make weight loss and life in general a little bit more challenging for women. And that's what we're going to dig into today. And we'll talk a little bit about how too much fasting can have a negative impact on cortisol, on your sex hormones, on thyroid, and on your metabolism. But I just want to start off by saying this because I know that there are a lot of the women in the group that are fasting and that are doing longer fasts. And I'm not here to hate on fasting. I 100% understand the health benefits of fasting. I also know that a lot of women get fantastic results with intermittent fasting, even with longer fasts. I recommend fasting to my clients. I practice intermittent fasting myself, but I do think that we need to be smart about how we incorporate intermittent fasting into our life. And I think we need to be honest with ourselves, and I think we need to recognize when fasting is no longer benefiting us, and that's kind of what I want to talk about today. And the information that I'm sharing with you, this comes from all of the different mentors that I follow or that I've learned from, most being functional medicine practitioners or naturopathic doctors, such as Dr. Jay Teta, Dr. Will Cole, Dr. Jockers, Dr. Axe, all of these people that I have listened to in seminars and courses and all that. So again, I know this is a sensitive topic, and my goal is not to shame anyone in the group that is currently practicing intermittent fasting. I really just want to help you figure out what the best practice is for you. Hi, Michelle. Yes, extremes often ending extreme disappointment. Glad that you like that. And hello to anyone else. And just very quickly, if you are listening to this, if you are live, give me a hello. Just tell me where you're from. And if you catch the replay, let me know as well. Again, it really helps me to know when women are seeing this. Okay, so let me just quickly get back to my notes. So let's talk about what is going on. So there's three things that I want to talk about. So number one is cortisol, which I discussed in detail yesterday. But what we need to understand is that fasting is a stressor. And I talked about a number of stressors yesterday. This is one of the physiological stressors that I talked about. So fasting increases the production of cortisol, right? And I've talked about the Goldilocks principle all week long. When it comes to hormones, we want it to be just right, not too much, not too little. So when it comes to fasting, I think the most important thing that we need to think about is what is our current stress load? And yesterday I talked about that bell curve, right? So too little stress, not good. Too much stress, not good. And then there's like that sweet spot. So if you are in your sweet spot and you add in intermittent fasting, then you might thrive with this strategy and it might be perfect for you. But if you already have like a bunch of stressors in your life and you add on intermittent fasting, it may be the straw that breaks the camel's back that sends you down that bell curve into too much stress. So that is something that you really have to be aware of. And again, for women that are in their 40s, hi, Carol. Another thing for women in their 40s is understanding that, once again, I talked about this, I can't remember which day, but we have less progesterone than we used to. And progesterone is our calming hormone, right? Which means that we are already prone to being more stress reactive and not being able to handle stressors. And then the other thing, just like on the topic of women in 40 and stress, there's this thing called the pregnenolone steal. So, and this is something that I did not know until a couple of years ago, but your adrenals, which are responsible for your stress hormones, they also produce your sex hormones, and they actually take on a more important role as you go through menopause. So your adrenals produce progesterone and a little bit of estrogen and DHEA and a little bit of testosterone, but they also produce cortisol. And if your adrenals are overburdened, they always choose cortisol over anything else, which means that if you're overstressed, then you may see a decline in all of those sex hormones, and that can make you feel like crap, especially as you go through menopause. Okay. All right, so let's move on to the next thing that I want to talk about, which is the fact that women are more sensitive to the effects of fasting on something called kisspeptin. So kisspeptin is a neuropeptide that stimulates a hormone called GnRH. I'm not even going to tell you, I'm not even try to pronounce what that is, but basically what that hormone does is it tells your hypothalamus to tell your pituitary to start producing all of the hormones that regulate your menstrual cycle. And I know that most of you are not looking to get pregnant, but you still want to have a regular menstrual cycle as much as possible, even though you're going through perimenopause, unless you're postmenopause, and then obviously you don't have menstrual cycles anymore. But kisspeptin is very sensitive to changes in energy balance, and women have more kisspeptin than men. And so fasting can make those kisspeptin levels drop, which then affects our sex hormones. So less estrogen, less progesterone, less testosterone. And all of these things are extremely important. Like having balanced hormones is what is going to make you feel good. And I just want to talk about estrogen. We talked about estrogen dominance on, I can't remember if it was Monday or Tuesday, but let's talk about when we have a deficiency in estrogen, right? So fasting can lower estrogen because of the effects on kisspeptin, and estrogen is responsible for way more than just your period. So it plays a role in regulating appetite, in regulating your mood, in regulating your metabolism, in regulating where you store body fat. So when we have lots of estrogen, we store it around our hips and our thighs and our breasts, which gives us like that hourglass shape. When we have less estrogen, it goes right to our belly. Okay. Estrogen plays a role in your bone health, your heart health, and much, much more. So if you have less estrogen, you're going to start to notice like brain fog, anxiety, depression, digestive issues, osteoporosis, fatigue, low energy, low appetite, hot flashes, incontinence because it's related to your pelvic floor. Like there's so much. So you can see that maintaining estrogen levels as much as possible is very important. Does that make sense so far, ladies? If you are watching, just give me a yes. That's always very helpful. And let me know if you have questions. I am taking a look at the comments, even though I'm taking a look at my notes at the same time. Okay, and then finally, the other effect that fasting can have is that there is on the thyroid. So there are all kinds of different thyroid problems that we can experience, and they're all impacted differently from intermittent fasting, but the only thing you need to know is that basically thyroid is your master of metabolism, and if your thyroid is not functioning optimally, then nothing else will. And so if you have been already diagnosed with hypothyroidism, I would say tread lightly with fasting. Now, this does not mean that women cannot use intermittent fasting as a strategy for weight loss. Again, it just means that we need to be smart about it. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is talk a little bit about what to look out for, right? Because I think the most important thing to remember is that we need to listen to our body, and we need to constantly assess how we're doing and make sure that what we're doing is benefiting us and not making things worse. So here are some things to look out for, okay? So let's start with hunger. So when you're fasting, you want hunger to be manageable, okay? So basically, hunger comes in waves, right? So when I'm fasting, I might notice a little bit of hunger, but it comes in a wave. Like I'm like, oh, I'm a little bit hungry. But if I don't head to the kitchen, like 20 minutes later, that hunger is gone, right? That's totally fine. What I don't want is I don't want to be hangry. I don't want to let my body get to the point where I'm just like, get out of my way. I need food and I need it now. That's one thing that we need to pay attention to. The other thing we want to pay attention to is just how we are reacting to stress. So, as I said, fasting can be a stressor and we have to watch our overall stress load. So, just pay attention. Are you more stress reactive? Do you lose your temper quickly? Are you more anxious than normal? Those are all signs that you're putting too much stress on the body. How is your sleep? Does it get worse when you incorporate intermittent fasting? Has your menstrual cycle changed? That's an indication that it's impacting your sex hormones again. Are you losing your hair? Another big thing that I see in the keto fasting community is women complaining about hair loss. Are you cold all the time? That's a big sign and symptom of hypothyroidism. Do you have a sex drive, or does that like kind of disappear when you start fasting? How are your energy levels? Do you feel deprived or unhappy? That's another big one, because we don't want intermittent fasting to feel difficult. It should feel easy. Okay, we don't want to force a fast. It should be like, no, yeah, I'm not eating, no big deal. That's what it should feel like. Um, does it affect your exercise performance? So, are your workouts harder? Does it take you longer to recover? Are you seeing results? Right? If you're not getting results whatsoever, then that is a problem. That is telling you something. We want to see kind of like a slow, steady. If weight loss is your goal, we want to see a slow, steady progress down. If you plateau, that tells us something, right? Also, I really recommend when it comes to intermittent fasting to check in with your feelings around food and body. Um, Intermittent fasting, any form of fasting, is never recommended to any woman with a history of having an eating disorder, whether it's anorexia, bulimia, orthorexia, because it can really trigger some negative emotions and thoughts around food. So just check yourself. Like, do you feel guilty or do you feel ashamed if you break the fast early? We don't want to do that. Do you kind of feel, like I said, deprived? And then do you have a tendency to binge or overeat when you're in your allotted food period? Are you creating weird rules about food? Are you hypercritical about your body? All these things are, for me, they're like signs that maybe intermittent fasting is not the right strategy for you. Okay. So again, just to summarize it, you will know if you are being too extreme in your fasting if your menstrual cycle becomes irregular or stops, you have a hard time falling asleep or staying asleep, you start to lose your hair, like your hair starts to fall out, or you start to notice that your skin gets really dry, you're not recovering from your workouts, if you have an injury, you're not healing as fast, or maybe you're picking up every single bug that's going around because your immune system is affected. Your tolerance to stress decreases, right? So you freak out over nothing. You start feeling like you're getting mood swings. You may notice your heart starts to pitter patter. That's another sign that you're fasting too much. No, like you're not interested in having sex anymore. Your digestion might slow down, right? So maybe you start to feel constipated. Just making sure this is not my daycare. No, it's someone from France. Anyways, all right, you are cold all the time. That's another sign, or you hit a weight loss plateau. So, any questions so far on that, ladies? I'll come back and check on you. So I want to kind of dive into the solution now. So, because I always try to offer a solution and not just what not to do, obviously. Okay, so the solution. So the solution is essentially to make fasting less stressful. So somebody wanted to know last week, like, what is the optimal eating window? And really, it is whatever works for you. You need to find a fasting schedule that works for your body. There's no cookie cutter response. Everyone has their own tolerance to fasting based on their stress load. And so it's really more of a thing where you just have to kind of experiment and see what works best for your body. Check in with yourself at least once a week, right? A very quick check-in that I do with my clients is your schmeck in check? So schmeck stands for sleep, mood, hunger, energy, and cravings, right? So if any of those go out of whack, it tells me we need to back off. The stress load is too much and we need to back off somewhere. And that might be fasting, right? The other caution is for women who have issues with hypoglycemia, right? So when your blood sugar levels go up and then you have like these big crashes, you need to really take it slowly with fasting because it can make hypoglycemia worse. So you have to really ease into it and kind of monitor how you're doing and make sure that your glucose is stabilizing. But it can help with blood sugar management. You just have to be really careful. So the technique that I like to do with my clients is something called crescendo fasting. This is something that you can Google. But basically what it is it's about gradually introducing fasting into your routine. So what I recommend, if you are brand new to fasting, or if you're doing fasting and you think you might be fasting too much, number one, I would say fast on non-consecutive days. So maybe you fast on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Okay. On the days that you are fasting, take it easy on the exercise, because again, exercise is another stressor. So you don't want to add in stressor upon stressor upon stressor. So on the days that I practice longer fasts, I don't do any exercise. I go for a walk. I do some meditation. Okay. Um, I would say a good fasting window for women is probably, at the beginning at least, would be somewhere between 12 and 16 hours. So do that at the beginning, work up to doing that 3, maybe 4 times a week. And if you feel good, if your schmeck is in check, then you could play around with extending the fast and seeing how you feel. What else? So the last thing I wanted to talk about was OMAD, which is essentially when you are eating one meal a day. And I know that is quite popular within like the keto community and the fasting community, and definitely with women who are struggling with stubborn weight loss, which is women in their 40s and 50s. So I just want to talk a little bit about a couple of things to consider when it comes to OMAD, because again, it is a longer period of fasting, which means that it is going to be a bigger stressor on the body. So first of all, OMAD can be a great way to just naturally reduce your calories without worrying about counting calories. So I do see the benefit of OMAD. It can be a great way to incorporate calorie cycling into your life. But as I was talking about on Tuesday, I can't remember anymore. I'm getting it all mixed up. So we have to understand that when we reduce our caloric intake, it can, on a daily basis, it can work short term, but if we do it daily, long term, it can actually lower our metabolic rate and it can make weight loss more difficult. So I wouldn't recommend daily OMAD. I would recommend probably doing it again on non-consecutive days, and then making sure that you're eating plenty of calories on your days off. Now, on the days that you are doing OMAD, remembering that most experts are still recommending that you're not just eating a regular meal. You're not just eating like a 500 or 600 calorie meal. You're trying to eat like a good portion inside that very small eating window. So maybe you're aiming for 1,200 calories at that one meal. Personally, I have a small appetite. There's no way I could eat 1,200 calories if I'm eating healthy food. If I'm eating McDonald's, yeah, I could probably squeeze in 1,200 calories, but that is not what I'm recommending, right? We want to still be eating good food. In fact, that is another thing to take into account. If you're just eating one meal, then that meal should be super nutrient dense. You should be eating plenty of protein, right? Because we still want to meet our daily minimum requirements of protein, which can be hard if you're just eating one meal. We also want to make sure that we're getting plenty of vitamins and minerals and nutrients, which again can be challenging if we're just eating that one meal. One tool that I really like is something called Chronometer. So Chronometer is like kind of like MyFitnessPal and Carb Manager. So it's an app where you can track like your carbs and your calories. Why I like Chronometer is because unlike most of them, they give you an exact breakdown of your micronutrients. So macronutrients is like fat, protein, carbs. Micronutrients is going to be like vitamin C, vitamin B, vitamin D, fiber, all of that. So you can get a little bit of a picture of if your approach is nutrient dense and giving you what your body needs. What else do I have here? And then again, yeah, just check in with yourself and really make sure that your relationship with food isn't getting weird, right? You're not starting to have all these kind of weird rules, that your schmeck is in check. and just making sure that really it's benefiting you and not you're not taking it to the extreme and causing more stress on your body. Any questions about that, ladies? So that brings us to the end, and I'm keeping an eye on the comments, so feel free to type in if you have any questions about fasting. But that kind of sums up the top 5 mistakes that I see women make. And hopefully I have provided with you with a ton of value and takeaways that you can work on. What I am going to do now is tell you a little bit more about my program and what I'm offering for the Black Friday promo. If you are good to go, you probably don't need to listen to this. But if you are interested in possibly getting a little extra support, I did say that I was going to talk about it today. I'm going to talk about it quickly right now. And then tomorrow I'll probably jump on and talk about it a little bit more because the day has skipped away and I have to go pick up my daughter. But essentially, my new program is called the 90-Day Flat Belly Over 40 Formula. And it was essentially designed with all of this in mind. So it's a weight loss program that takes into account your sex hormones, adrenal fatigue, hypothyroidism, metabolic compensation, sustainability, creating a lifestyle, being able to eat your favorite foods, not being deprived. That's what it kind of all pulls together. And it's split into 3 sections. So a nutrition section, a training section, and accountability. So I'll talk more about the nutrition tomorrow, but very quickly in 60 seconds, it's broken down into 3 separate phases. So the first phase is one where we do essentially an elimination diet to get rid of foods that are really having a negative impact on your hormones and just give your body a chance to reset. And then in the second phase, I introduce 5 different strategies that I use to delay but not deny myself of calories in my favorite foods. So basically, I incorporate intermittent fasting, nutrient timing, carb cycling, and I provide women with a very specific schedule to follow. So there is absolutely no figuring it out. Like there's no guesswork. I tell you exactly what to do. I give you recipes, the ones that I cook for my family, like everything is laid out. And then in the final phase, then I introduce calorie cycling, but I do it in a way to protect your metabolism so that we're not slowing it down, which is so key because when you finish the program, I don't want you to put the weight back on. And then the training portion is really based on the Goldilocks principle of not too much, not too little, but just right. And I do it that way because I do not want your training to be a stressor on your body. So it's 3 workouts similar to what I offer you guys on Wednesdays, 30 minutes, lots of walking, and some R&R like a hot bath, getting a massage, etc., etc. And then, of course, there's the accountability, which is having me as your flat belly coach, which basically means that I check in with you and I give you a little tough love if you need it, a little encouragement when you need it. What I'm doing for Black Friday is I am offering women walkie-talkie access to me, which basically means that I'm giving you my phone number so you can reach me and I can help you. And really my only goal is to make sure that you get the results that you want. And if you get stuck, then we jump on a Zoom call, we figure it out. That's it in a nutshell. If you are interested and you want to take a deeper dive into it, then what the next thing you want to do is basically book a call with me. And what we would do is we would talk about your goals, talk about your current situation, talk about what's getting in your way. And if it makes sense for both of us, then we can talk about working together for the next 90 days. That's pretty much it. That's what the program is. I'm going to jump on tomorrow. I've been talking a lot today, and kind of go over a little bit more details. And I'll probably do a Q&A on Sunday. And I might even try and get one of my current clients to jump on with me so that you can hear what my clients experience, because it's always nice to see someone else talk about it. I'm really proud of this program. It's kind of a culmination of everything that I've learned over the past 5 years. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Next week, I'm going to get back to my regular programming, and my business partner, my old business partner, Tamala, is going to join me on Monday for Mindfulness Mondays. I think we're going to do a meditation, and then I'm going to talk to you guys about the 12 Days of Fitness, which is the little workout challenge that I've got for you guys for December. And then, of course, we'll do Flat Belly Fridays. Thank you for watching to the very end, and I will see you soon. Bye.